We've now going to be joined by Ambarish Baliga as well as Mayuresh Joshi, and in a bit I think we'll have Sudarshan as well joining in. But Ambarish, first to you, the story of the day has been on, Cairn. Today we know it's adjusting for, the merger ratio and that, preferential, that redeemable preference share, etc.
Yes.
But what happens to Cairn from tomorrow after today's technical adjustment has played out?
No, I think the value destruction, whatever had to happen, I think has happened in the last 1 year. Because clearly it was relating to cash, and there were two issues with Cairn. One was the tax demand, and the other one was that the cash will be utilized by the group. So when it comes to tax demand, you could have put a probability to it, 0.2, 0.3, whatever it is. But when it comes to cash being used by the group, now it's very sure that it will be used up. So I think it's already there in the price. I don't see much of a downside from here, but at the same time I really don't see as to why it should move up more.
So you wouldn't recommend investors to buy Cairn at this level?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's something you've been saying for a while now, because Cairn has been under so much pressure.
Yes,
but post this merger, you don't see any need to sort of enter into the stock at all?
No, there's no need to enter into this stock because whatever small positives were there, from this announcement, basically the pref shares, that's already there in the price. It has moved up nearly 6-7 rupees, and I think that's already adjusted to that extent.
All right, let's get Sudarshan Sukhani into this conversation as well. Sudarshan, hi, welcome back. The markets have given up a lot of its gains, so although it's been a stable day, the rise has been quite unconvincing. In that sense, is this still a sell-on rally market?
Yes, good afternoon, Sonia. It is a sell-on rallies market. See, intraday trades can be taken and will come on both sides of this market, buy or sell. I'm not talking just of today, in the future also. But the broad thrust of this market is downwards. So if we trade in the direction of the trend, which is down, the trades are generally easier to take.
Okay. Sudarshan, any thoughts in particular on Bank of Baroda as well as State Bank of India? Both of them are leading the Bank Nifty in terms of its losses.
No, the thoughts are more specific to the Bank Nifty, because the Bank Nifty is likely to go down as the Nifty is likely. See, if you are an investor, then this dip is a correction. Wherever it goes and stops, it doesn't matter. State Bank of India is a buying opportunity for long-term 3 to 5 year investors. For anyone else looking at a 3-month time horizon, it's an avoid.
Okay, let's get Mayuresh Joshi into the conversation too. Mayuresh, hi, afternoon. Ambarish was just telling us that there's no point really investing into a stock like Cairn now because there's not too much in terms of long-term positives. What did you make of the Cairn Vedanta deal, and between the two stocks, would you have any recommendations at all?
Afternoon, Sonia. So clearly, I think in terms of just the deal itself, I think it's a win-win for both shareholders. However, I think if you talk individually about the stocks, I think though Cairn has an extended asset base, and considering the kind of potential that it can derive from its various fields, I think there are two attributes that work against it. A, I think the oil prices, if they're supposed to stay in a range, I think that will not have a positive rub-off effect in terms of their earnings delivery and free cash flows. And second, I think the kind of impending liabilities, both from an income tax perspective, I think that is going to create some amount of overhang. So I think though there is value into the stocks, considering the kind of assets that he has, it doesn't make sense probably at this point of time for Cairn. And similarly for Vedanta, our take is that the fair value should be close to around 200, 205. But again, I think it's very close to where the stock is trading currently. I think though the deal probably will have a rub-off effect in terms of all commodities coming through, it still has a little bit of a problem when it comes to its aluminium business, where the realizations still are low. And even on the zinc business, I think if one assumes additional royalty to probably go through, I think even the zinc business, considering the kind of pricing that we're looking at, and again, I think the LME inventory levels, I think that business is not expected to perform at least for the next 2 to 3 quarters. So overall, I think we're maintaining a neutralish stance on both these stocks.
Okay. Ambarish, any thoughts on Jet Airways? It's down 4.5%. We were, CNBC TV 18 is reporting that Indigo is likely to file its DRHP by the 30th of June. Do you see a lot of investors getting out of Jet Airways and entering into Indigo once, the stock is listed? And so what happens to Jet Airways in the near term or medium term now?
Now, you tell me, what do you do in a sector where despite the oil prices being down, the demand being decently high, they've been able to charge much higher fares. And despite that, if you're not able to show decent profits, do you invest in such a sector? You surely don't. And that's exactly the case with Jet. I mean, there was a trigger, positive trigger because of Etihad. That played out. There was nothing, nothing for the shareholders in that deal. So now it has come down to these levels, because if you see the oil prices moving up some more from here, that's surely not good for the airline industry.
Exactly. So that, just taking Rima's point forward, it makes sense to then invest into something like Indigo, right? Because that's the only one of the two profit making along with Go Air. So even in a beleaguered industry, there are some outliers like Indigo.
No, there are outliers like Indigo, but then we still really don't know as to how they are showing those profits, because it's very difficult to see that the listed players are not making money. Anyone who who had got listed in the past, for example, Kingfisher and the others, Damania way back, we have seen that none of them had made money.
And you could burn your fingers a lot in this.
But at the same time, the unlisted players are showing profits. It clearly shows. There's a question mark.
There's a question.
Yeah.
I was reading a report where they said that we're expecting Indigo's FY15 revenues to be $2.5 billion and profits of about $150 to $200 million, which means margins of about 6 to 7% at the net level. So, it's fairly, profitable, though we don't know the internals of how they...
No, that's true. You know what Ambrish is saying. No one has ever seen the P&L or the balance sheets of Indigo and Go Air. Right. So you just have to leave it to reports and hearsay as to what the actual internals are. So unless we don't see the DRHP, I don't think you can take a call.
Well, but at least, the company's traffic share has been going up. I think in the month of April, it was about a 48% is what they'd captured, as well as their market share is nearly a third of the domestic market share. But anyway, just about 3 minutes left for, market closing. Mayuresh, any thoughts on Idea Cellular? That stock is doing well. The company's just announced that how the revenue market share of the company has gone up by 1.6% in the January to March quarter, and that's the best or the highest increase in market share that they've seen so far. So, would you like Idea Cellular?
So clearly, Rima, I think, again, I'll wait for declines on Idea Cellular. With the kind of spectrum payouts that you are witnessing, the net debt to EBITDA levels for Idea will definitely be shooting up. And though the other parameters are holding up, not just for Idea, even for Bharti, if you look at their ARPM, if you look at the minutes of usage, I think they're all showing upticks, including the data usage that Idea has been reporting. So that has been pretty healthy. But again, I think two factors probably working against it. Again, one, the spectrum payout will definitely increase the kind of debt levels on Idea's books. Secondly, I think when you're talking about competition expected to come through from Lia and Jio, I think if it's a disruptive strategy, I think you might have some amount of weakness, sentimentally at least, coming onto the stock. So clearly wait for some more length of time. I think if it corrects down to those 160, 150 odd levels, I'll probably start accumulating Idea. But at the current juncture, I think A, valuations are a little bit looking stretched, and B, I think again the cash flows and return ratios would be under pressure for the next 2 to 3 quarters.
Okay, we just have about 2.5 more minutes to go. It'll be a disappointing day actually. What started off as quite promising ended up with very minor gains on the index. So quite a volatile session, and the mid caps have flattened out completely. Bank Nifty well in the red. So this market rise has been pretty unconvincing, as you've seen, and it's still pretty much a sell on every rally market. But just let's get some final comments in. Mayuresh, the big overarching positive theme in the macros over the weekend was the growth in the investment cycle, which we saw from the capital goods numbers, which were quite consistent. How would you play that, either in the form of any capital goods names, any infrastructure names, the transmission and distribution segment, anything that you would buy there?
So clearly, I think they are mixed. And again, the IIP numbers have been extremely volatile over the next 2 to 3 months. Unless there is consistency in data across data points within that number itself, I think very difficult to take a structural call. However, I think if one really has a 2 to 3 year perspective, L&T is something that we continue to like. I think though the numbers were a little bit softer, I think it encompasses a lot of factors about the Indian economy. So L&T is something that we continue to like. The EPC theme is something that we are liking and continuing. So I think MBL Infra from the road EPC side, Action Construction Equipment, which provides cranes and loaders, I think that is something that we believe we'll see margin expansion. And clearly, even on the power side, I think even though there is a big overhang in terms of what will come out with Power Grid's FPO, Power Grid is something that we seriously liking over the next 3 to 5 years with a regulated ROE model. The earnings should be quite stable and valuations looking extremely attractive at this juncture.
Sudarshan, by any chance, would you, track SR Oil? Because that's been a big mover of late.
Yes, it's been a big mover in the last 2 days, not of late. And in 2 days, it's rallied almost 30-40%. In fact, I and Sonia were talking about it. You don't buy such stocks. You do not buy such stocks which remain sleeping for months and then in 2 days go through such rallies. You avoid them.
Okay, yes, I remember that conversation that we had earlier in the day.